Hello friends, I wanted to start a new segment, one that I'll likely update every patch cycle around the 3/4 mark, taking a look at the aggregate meta standings in CN and how the new releases of the patch has influenced the meta. It won't be an in-depth review of the characters, that will come later when the characters release for us on global, but an overview of the characters released, the sentiments expressed by the Chinese community, especially in regards to their performance and relevance in the new Reveries or Endgame releasing in that patch. This will also include Euphoria updates for existing characters, as well as off-meta niche picks like 4 stars and 5 stars if they're widely adopted to cheese certain mechanics. This is all in an effort to give you foresight of the broadest possible opinion when it comes to shaping your pools and the characters you invest materials in the future for Endgame. Before we get into it, a few disclaimers. This video is based on tier lists from big reverse 1999 CN communities and creators, and the data from respected testers on NGA, which is the National Gamers Association forums. This does not absolutely determine a character's performance. This is a game where the endgame is constantly evolving and tier lists are always changing periodically. Always do your own additional research and enjoy the game in your own way. I'll preface this by giving you some facts on how much the landscape of the game appears to have shifted in the past 5 months. Back in patch 2.5, we were using decks like Liang Yue 37 for 400 meter -1, GU decks for 400 meter -2, Lucy decks for 400 meter -3, and Noah Control or Andrew Kornblum decks for 400 meter -4. There was no defined archetype we see nowadays to speak of. Reveries in the Rain, which is considered our Apex endgame content, released on global back in February 20th of this year in patch 2.3. 310 meters to 400 meters was released more or less about 2 months later during patch 2.5 on the 24th of April. Now, patch 3.0 that's releasing on the 1st of November will further increase reveries from 400 meters up to 450 meters. This means a total of 191 days since the last update to the endgame. Patch 3.1 that drops sometime between the 13th to the 15th of December will bring Reveries 460 meters all the way up to 1000 meters, which will mark the assumed conclusion of Reveries. It's almost as though Bluepark's design philosophy regarding endgame has shifted from heavy use of limiteds and characters at level 60, resonance 10+, while overcoming mechanics through shuffling niche characters like Kornblum, Sputnik, and TTT to a distinctly archetype-based endgame design with a less of an emphasis on mechanics-based approaches to a, if you have all the characters of the correct archetype, you'll be able to breeze through the content. The AC collab really accelerated this direction by providing units with such a high degree of roll compression and damage coefficients while keeping the gameplay quite bland and straightforward. AC units could brute force almost all of the existing endgame while we were in patch 2.7, while at Insight 3 level 30, PsyQ 50, and so on. It's my belief that Bluepark has shifted their focus from just meta units to meta teams for their vision going forward. The arguments that arise from time to time, as was the case back in 2.6 and onwards, in regards to power creep and inflation, can more or less be attributed to the stagnant nature of Reveries, while at the same time observing characters that would completely blow out the units that global players have access to. So let's take a look at the data for 3.0. 3.0 dropped for CN on the 26th of June, and remember this is before the AC collaboration for China. The first character to release was Sentinel. The general sentiment was that she solidified the dominance of the Blood Tithe team, replacing Flutterpage. The core of the debate and much of the analysis was in regards to why Sentinel is necessary to bring over Flutterpage, who in a purely numbers on buffs comparison provided 80% damage increase and 30% crit to Flutterpage's 110% damage increase and 24% crit. Even though inferior on paper, Sentinel's bullets also provides high attached damage, which is calculated based on Sentinel's own stats, which effectively adds extra multipliers to Nautica's incantation skill, the equivalent to granting Nautica's ultimate an independent damage increase of 76%, and her S1 damage an increase of 126%. Sentinel also provides consistent follow-up attacks dealing 80 to 100k, and when Nautica ults, deals an additional 130 to 150k damage. By comparison, Flutterpage's personal damage contribution is very low. And finally, she contributes a significant amount of blood tithe, averaging 1.5 stacks per round. Some of the critiques that came along with the release of Sentinel was that the balance direction is clearly favored towards providing indirect buffs to the existing dominant meta team of Nautica and E1 Semmelweis, leaving all of the competition in the dust. Charon's banner dropped in the second half of 3.0 on the 17th of July. Charon was extremely well received as having fixed any outlying holes that the existing Dynamo team of Lucy, Ulrich, and Ezra had back in patch 2.8. The time it took to reach level 3 electric field was considerably reduced, as he allows for the players to skip level 2 entirely. He also has incredible synergy with Ulrich and the generation of decryption keys. Unlike Sentinel, Charon was instantly perceived by the community as a must pull if you run the Dynamo deck. The previous contender for the support position being Melania. The electric field rotation was previously 3 rounds of non-level 3 into 2 rounds of level 3, which changes with Charon making the rotation 2 rounds of ramp and 2 rounds of level 3, making sustaining level 3 much higher. Charon also provides an impressive 50% crit and 64% crit damage and 30% damage increase, along with 80% crit conversion to crit damage. For the icing on the cake, Charon is a very AP efficient character, while at the same time providing a massive AoE auto attack at the end of each round while in level 3, and a 20% execute mechanic that pairs extremely well with triggering the Reaper portion of Lucy's kit. Again, contrast to the optional or premium nature of Sentinel, Charon was unanimously hailed as a core member and non-negotiable upgrade for the Dynamo team. In addition to these 2 incredibly strong characters, the Euphorias for Getian, Centurion, and Druvis were released. Getian was elevated to a strong sub-DPS status, in addition to providing an array of Ultimate Might related buffs. But both Centurion and Druvis was received as comparatively underwhelming additions. In Centurion's case, it was more of an overall damage bump, which for convenience sake she could be used, but it didn't change anything from her already relatively basic kit. In Druvis's case, her lukewarm reception was partially because this was before the introduction of Euphoria Marcus and Villa, creating the rank up team, and the lack of a strong plant-based team during that time. So to retroactively summarize how the 3.0 patch was received in conjunction with the increase in reveries to 450 meters, the character that ran away with the patch was without question Charon, who enabled the Dynamo team to rival the power of the Blood Tithe team, so long as it was a multi-target fight. It also led to many questions regarding the standings of teams below these 2 giants, particularly the question of Premium Impromptu versus Matilda Impromptu, as well as Euphoria Voyager and Euphoria Regulus. The Ultimate team, however, was deemed far weaker than that of the 3 teams ahead of it, with many pointing out that Recoleta had only patch 2.6 and half of patch 2.7 to shine. After the AC collab, which I'll not summarize here as it is uncertain whether Bluepark will do a rerun of this collab. However, I'll note that with the introduction of Euphoria Marcus and Villa and the creation of the rank up team, which is Euphoria Marcus, Druvus, Argus, or Mercuria, and Villa, the Ultimate Might team fell even further in the meta, and it is widely considered that Assassin's Creed teams have filled several positions in the rankings, particularly Ultimate Ezio with Getian support and Poison Ezio with Tuesday support, followed by the Impromptu and then the Rank Up team. Patch 3.1 dropped on September the 19th, bringing with it quite a shock as it was revealed that Reveries would be extending to 1000 meters, which caused many to speculate how this endless mode would test their characters. Rubuska was the first character to drop, with all indications of her visual style and her vampire fangs leading many to believe that this was going to be the core support of the Blood Tithe team. As a result, it wasn't surprising that her kit's performance was insanely strong, as this character needed to surpass Fatutu in order to convince players to pull, boasting absurd levels of healing as well as buffs. According to Icehood, Rubuska is about 18% stronger than Fatutu in a medium length fight of 8 to 10 rounds, and more than 90% stronger in a burst environment of 0 to 4 rounds. The gap is actually much narrower on extended fights that last 15 to 20 turns, being 3% favored towards Rubuska. Her defensive kit works a little differently to that of Medicine Pocket and Villa, in that she follows up heals after her allies deal an attack, which is perfect for the Blood Tithe team in keeping them healthy and generating maximum stacks. Her heals are based off of her maximum HP, so it's not unusual to see her healing for 30k on Nordica. Additionally, her death prevention buff is just an icing on an already very unique kit. Rubuska single-handedly raises the bar of what is considered a healer, as her compression and more importantly her output is quite literally broken, levels above Euphoria Villa and even Kiparina. Finally, Corvus released on the 9th of October, with quite a lot of speculation and buzz after it was revealed that she is a main DPS in the Dynamo team. If there were any gripes regarding Lucy's Dynamo team, was that the single target damage of Lucy was quite a tier below Blood Tithe teams during fights where Lucy can't reap off of lower HP enemies. Now, my personal opinion regarding this was it was highly unlikely that they would release a standard character that surpassed the performance of an anniversary character just from the historical trends by Bluepark. This is somehow both true and false at the same time, because while Corvus does not directly surpass Lucy, she does provide a comparable alternative that excels in the area that Lucy was lacking, which I guess is the best way to get people to spend their Unilogs just before the 2.5 anniversary. So Corvus is the classic ramp character in both theory and practice. Her damage ramps to a point where the DPT, damage per turn, surpasses even that of a premium Blood Tithe team. The first thing to note is that she is completely different in her playstyle to Lucy. Really, the only overlap is that they share the same supports of Ulrich and Charon, but you could split the teams in such a way that Ulrich is played with Lucy and Corvus is played with Charon. Her ramp resides in her stacking a buff called Arclight and Flutter Arc, and around the 8 to 12 round mark is when you'll start to hit like a truck. It can be summarized as every time she goes through a electric field cycle, meaning 2 rounds of level 1 and 2 rounds of level 3, she will gain about 60 Arclight and convert that amount into Flutter Arc. In addition to ramping buffs, she also ramps debuffs, which is how she results in crazy damage numbers if the fight is to exceed beyond round 12, which for all intents and purposes is generally how long a Reverie stage lasts in 450 meters or 500 meter fights. Bluepark is quietly being praised by the veterans of the game because of how unique her kit is while not upsetting the meta by any meaningful degree. Her area of expertise actually resides in boss content, specifically during Main's Bulletin, so while those less informed might gawk at the damage numbers, in reality it is a much more involved playstyle that rewards careful stacking of buffs and rotation management. To cap things off, for Euphorias, Bluepuck released Euphoria A-Knight and Euphoria Argus. A-Knight received a pretty lukewarm reaction purely because of the damage coefficients that were underwhelming, making it quite mandatory for him to use his new buff called Virtue, which relies on using incantations or getting kills, resulting in it being quite restrictive and reserved to content such as one-turn farming, something that Ezio can already accomplish with ease. Argus was the complete opposite, receiving a huge buff in the form of her Euphoria. Gravedigger now having the chance to proc a recast at a 10% rate while dealing additional damage depending on how many high-ranking incantations are being played, made for a very synergistic relationship with the rank up archetype. Argus really solidifies the rank up team, and the archetype itself is often said to be stronger than that of Impromptu, at least giving the standard decks a chance to compete with the limited decks. The only downside is that this deck requires 4 different Euphorias, making for quite a significant overall investment. I hope some of this information was helpful, or at least gives you an understanding of the direction where the meta is going in the future. I apologize for not summarizing Reverie Stages 450 and 500 meters in this video, as well as including niche picks that are useful. But I feel as though that would be information overload at this point and will dedicate a separate video to it just for this month. However, in the future, I'll try to incorporate the newly released endgame into this segment as well. The CN developer livestream previewing patch 3.2 will go live on the 18th of October at 8 PM CST, and I'll try my best to at least make a short video summarizing what's to come. Till next time.